वैष्णव তারে হরের নাম বৃন্দাবনে তোমার স্থানে অপরাধের নাই পরিত্রাণ আর তোমার স্থানে অপরাধের নাই পরিত্রাণ স্থানে অপরাধের নাই তোমার রে দয়ে সদা গোবিন্দ বিশ্রাম তোমার রে আর তোমার রে দয়ে সদা গোবিন্দ বিশ্রাম তোমার রে আরে গোবিন্দ কহেন মম বৈষ্ণব পরাণ আরে গোবিন্দ কহেন মম বৈষ্ণব পরাণ গোবিন্দ কহেন মম প্রতি জন্মে করে আশা চরণের ধুলে প্রতি জন্মে আমি প্রতি জন্মে করি আশা চরণের ধুলে প্রতি জন্মে আর নরোত্তমে কর দয়া আপনার বলে এই অধমে কর দয়া আপনার ভোলে এই অধমে কর দয়া আপনার এইবার করুণা কর বৈষ্ণব গোসাই আর পতে তো পাবন তোমা বিনা কেহ না জয় Tamal Krishna Okay, you can flare then. You can flare over.
Hare Krishna. Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Tranapekha Atihina.
Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Trinapeksha Atihina.
Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Tranapekha Atihina.
Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Trinapeksha Atihina.
Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Tranapekha Atihina. Kripa Bindu Diya Karo Edase Tranapekha Shakala Shahane Bola Diya Karo. Shakale Shahane Bola Diya Karo. Shakala Shahane Bola Diya Karo. Shakala Shahane Bola Diya Karo. Nijamane Srihanina. Nijamane Nijamane Shakale Shaman Korite Shakati Shakale Shaman Shakale Shaman Shakati Lehonat Rajat
महाराज के पास प्रोग्राम किससे शुरू करेंगे अभी क्या करेंगे स्टार नोटिफिकेशन शुरू करेंगे or if you allow one bhajan, if you allow one bhajan to okay, later. Beach में no हमारा तो late हो जाएगा बीच में okay start शुरू कर
Hare Krishna. So we welcome all of you to today's 21st to the Disappearance Day of our beloved His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So on this auspicious day, we are all here assembled together for glorifying Him. So today, now we will hear first from His Grace Mukunda Datta Prabhu, the Prabhupada's disciple, about the glories of the Guru Maharaj. I request His Grace Mukunda Datta Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll have to apologize in the beginning because I'm just getting over a bad cold and my voice may be distorted. Also, it's not 100% quiet and so it's hard for me to concentrate, but I will try. The real glory of Tamal Krishna Goswami is not limited to the appreciations of his disciples. His importance for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is perhaps understood only by Srila Prabhupada, because there's no question that he was one of the most closely trained persons in ISKCON, directly by Srila Prabhupada, closely trained. And that also was not by chance. Srila Prabhupada saw in him a certain characteristic that was required for the mission that Srila Prabhupada had to accomplish in the short time that he assumed he had. We should all assume that we have only short time, because even a long time is short time. Everyone lives less than 100 years, and many of us don't even get, most of us don't even get that far. And we can die suddenly, as Tamal Krishna Goswami did. It can happen. Even in Vrindavan, it happens everywhere. So his contributions to ISKCON are far too numerous to elaborate. I mean, I was recently requested to say a few words about Tamal Krishna Maharaj in Salem, Tamil Nadu, and that turned into 2.5 hours because it's not easy to just limit without getting into specific pastimes and memories and mainly I would like to glorify today the qualities that he had, and those qualities Srila Prabhupada very highly appreciated. Of course, I say this all the time, the primary qualification that he displayed consistently throughout his entire life was the readiness to accept with faith whatever the spiritual master said and to carry it out without fail. That is such an important thing. It is the most important thing, actually. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasadanna gati kutopi. So he had that characteristic that he was very eager to get the blessings of Srila Prabhupada. He had the intelligence, of course, to recognize who Srila Prabhupada was and Srila Prabhupada's own tremendous qualifications. But he also had the readiness to surrender. And that's not easy for a person who is highly competent himself, as he was. But he did that. And he constantly, consistently, and very much appreciably for the rest of us, he always displayed that example. What does it mean to be a real disciple? We have to learn this. And the only way that we can learn it is by looking at the lives and the activities and the instructions also given by great souls who have actually done that. And Tamal Krishna Goswami therefore set that example. I'm sure that he deliberately set that example also because he was that intelligent and foresightful. He could see that even 50 years later, people would be studying his life and deriving so much inspiration and direction and benefit from the decisions that he made, the choices that he made, the example that he set. One of the best ways to familiarize yourself with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, if you haven't done so already, is to read his first book. The first book that he wrote is called Servant of the Servant. And that book is essentially, it takes the form of a string of letters that Srila Prabhupada wrote to him throughout his Krishna conscious career. And I want to say, more importantly, his own commentary on those letters. Because what he saw in those letters says so much about him as a person and as a Vaishnava, especially. He was able to glean such instructions from Srila Prabhupada's letters. Sometimes I wonder if Srila Prabhupada even meant for him to take the letters the way that he did, but he always took it to be something to improve his Krishna consciousness. And he always approached anything that Prabhupada said to him with the attitude that whatever Prabhupada is speaking is the most important thing that I can possibly hear from anyone, anywhere, anytime. That was his level of conviction and dedication and faith. I don't want to repeat myself so often, but I have to always say that he is the personification of the final instruction of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, which is Yasya Deve Para Bhaktir Yatha Deve Tatha Gurau Tasyaidika Tatha Hirtaha Prakasham Mahatmanaha. Only unto those persons who reserve equal faith in both the Supreme Lord and the Spiritual Master are all the imports of the Vedic literatures automatically revealed. Automatically revealed. If we have that qualification, which is something that is just, we can try to cultivate it in the heart, but it seems to me that he had it already there, as if he was just sent to assist Srila Prabhupada from the first day that he walked into the door. He had this innate understanding of how to deal with Srila Prabhupada, what he could gain from Srila Prabhupada's association, and how he could please Srila Prabhupada. He was like that by his very nature, and that's, in my mind, that's the foremost qualification that he has. But you can read in your own time, in your own way, you can study how he interprets Srila Prabhupada's letters in that book, Servant of the Servant. because those instructions are also very good anyway, for everyone. But as I said, if you really want to know Tamal Krishna Goswami, just see how he functioned in this way. And then you can actually also make greater sense of the things that he did in his life, the accomplishments that he had, and the things that he deliberately tried to do, and why he tried to do those things, etc., etc., etc. I was hearing just this morning, he had explained that in 1976, he came to visit what we now call Gitanagari Farm. In those days it was called New Barshana. It was a brand new project. And Srila Prabhupada also wanted to come and visit that place. It was actually Srila Prabhupada who renamed New Barshana Farm as Gitanagari. Srila Prabhupada wanted to develop a whole theme, a thematic community, you might say, of Varnashram ideal there, based on the instructions of Krishna to Arjuna. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going from memory, but I think he said he wanted to have a Krishna Arjuna temple there. And currently the Radha Damodar deities from the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party are there. They've been there since 1978. But he was in this place, Gitanagari, in 1976, and he invited Brahmananda Prabhu to come and visit. In those days, he was Brahmananda Swami. And they were talking in so many ways, and somehow or other, Brahmananda Maharaj inspired him that, to take full advantage of Srila Prabhupada's association while it was available. That was the seed of the desire that he developed, and the ambition that he developed, because he never had a desire without an ambition attached. That was the seed of his desire to come and join Srila Prabhupada and become his secretary, because he had so much training from Srila Prabhupada, he had so many instructions from Srila Prabhupada, he had so much association from Srila Prabhupada, he had accomplished so many things for Srila Prabhupada. I often say this, that maybe 3/4 of what we have established in ISKCON was done through the agency of Tamal Krishna Maharaj by Srila Prabhupada's divine grace. But still, he wanted to come and act as Srila Prabhupada's secretary because he knew that it was a very crucial period in time, and he recognized that we can lose this association at any point. He once told me that although we say that the Vani is more important than the Vapu Sangha of the spiritual master, he said, Firpi, I never neglected one single opportunity to get Srila Prabhupada's association whenever it arose. And he also sought out such opportunities, as was the case in 1976. That was my misfortune, because I was there in Gitanagari at that time, and I joined the Radha Damodar bus party at that time, traveling Sankirtan party. And we lost his association, because at that point he went back to India to serve Srila Prabhupada. But it ultimately was for the good of ISKCON. And you all know the history of Srila Prabhupada's last days in this world, last year, I would say, in this world. I was busy distributing books at that time, but he came back to Vrindavan, and of course Srila Prabhupada did leave the planet. And I don't know how that could have taken place without Tamal Krishna Goswami's presence. It just was Krishna's arrangement, because he was, in my mind, the most qualified of all of Srila Prabhupada's close disciples. And although he could be very difficult, not could be, he generally was always very difficult to deal with on a practical level. But the character of his Krishna consciousness, his character in general, was so valuable that his association, however difficult it was to associate with him, the benefit that was there in terms of associating with him for even a short period of time was so great that it tended to make a lifelong impression It certainly did so with me. Sometimes I tell people this, that Tamal Krishna Goswami was such a personality that he left an indelible imprint on your subtle body, for permanent. Once you had his association closely at any length of time, it permanently changed you. And those who were really close enough could appreciate really all the sweetness about him. It was tremendously deep, as well as the heaviness. There was a sweetness and a compassion and so much virtues he had. That was also just part of the package that made him such wonderful association, and that made him so valuable even to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada sometimes would even take his advice on things. And unlike anyone else, he could actually differ from Prabhupada, and Prabhupada appreciated that. Anyway, Tamal Krishna Maharaj had this wonderful characteristic that he was completely separate, completely surrendered from Srila Prabhupada, had no separate interests, gave himself entirely to effecting Srila Prabhupada's desires and building his mission without fail. That was another characteristic of Tamal Krishna Goswami. He simply would not fail at anything he did. He could not tolerate. I remember when he was in Southern Methodist University in Texas, Dallas, Texas. He had a report card, and the report card was 4.0. That means perfect. 100% straight A student. Nothing less than A's he ever made, ever. But he was dissatisfied about that, and so he went to see his department head to discuss it. He wanted more than 100%. He was that kind of person. Very intense, and that's part of what made him difficult to deal with, because it was hard to keep up with him. Very, very difficult. Many, even most people, certainly among the God brothers, it's not so easy to deal with a God brother once he becomes the guru. You will all find out one day. So for the God brothers, it was easy, not easy. Even for his disciples, it was not easy. So, because he was not afraid to shy away from accepting a position of authority, and he was not afraid to assert that authority in order to effect what was needed at the time, place, and circumstance to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's desire. That's how you go through life serving the spiritual master without fail. He had 100% determination to do it and get it right. And he did. So, I mean, I can go on for a long time, but I know there's less time, and many people, I'm sure, will come and want to speak something. So I'm just going to say this in the abstract, these general qualities that Tamal Krishna Goswami had, and the things that he embodied which made him so valuable to our movement. Mayapur, anyone who's ever been there, you have to consider the nights that he slept on tops of piles of bricks to keep them from being stolen by thieves, or for that matter, the fact that he rode along in the lorry with the lorry driver in the truck with those bricks just to make sure that there was no funny business on the way. This was the extra mile that he would always go to perform his service and to make sure it was done. What to speak of just purchasing that land in Mayapur to begin with? That was also his credit. So, a third of the world's population, Srila Prabhupada saw fit to entrust to him only. He was unwilling to do it in the beginning. He didn't want to go. Shall I tell the story? You want to hear? Yes. Okay. So he was in Mangalarti in Mayapur. Actually, I should back up. The night before, he and Srila Prabhupada were discussing the fact that the Radha Damodar party, under his direction, was burning people out. Particularly, it was burning out temple presidents, householder temple presidents, because whatever few brahmacharis they had in their temples, they were being picked off by representatives of the Radha Damodar party. Every brahmachari's dream to go and travel with the sannyasis unencumbered, full Krishna consciousness. It was very difficult for the household or temple presidents to keep their brahmacharis as long as Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party was distributing 40% of the books that were distributed in ISKCON. And that was the figure. So this created a big problem. It was a multifaceted problem also, and ultimately it came to Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur of 1975, was it, or 76? I don't remember. 75. So, you know, Prabhupada was telling him that, you know, you've got to, actually Tamal Krishna Goswami was complaining to Srila Prabhupada. He didn't know what to do. Everything he did seemed to cause problems. So he said, I might as well go to the moon or go to China or something like that. And as soon as he heard the word China, Srila Prabhupada's eyes lit up. And Prabhupada said, that's it. That is a perfect idea. He was so happy about this. And Tamal Krishna Goswami, I'm sure he slapped his forehead at this time. Oh my God, what have I said? So the next morning in Mangalarati, he got a tap on the shoulder. He turned around, and who was it? It was Trivikram Swami, his eternal nemesis. And Trivikram Swami had he was gloating, and he thought, oh, there has to be a reason for this. Trivikram Swami was the one who was preaching in the Far East at that time. So Tamal Krishna Goswami, being Tamal Krishna Goswami, could immediately connect the dots. And he thought, oh my God, Prabhupada wants to see you right now. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj just shook and said, I'm not going. But of course he went. The disciple and the spiritual master, they may have some argument, but the disciple always loses, the spiritual master always wins. So he went, and Prabhupada said, I was thinking about what we discussed last night. Actually, there was no discussion the previous night. It was already decided. And Prabhupada said, I want you to go to China. And again, Tamal Krishna Maharaj argued, I'm not going to China. We're distributing all these books, half the books in ISKCON practically, and we have hundreds of people depending on me, and adi, adi, adi. So Prabhupada just told him, no, these things can go on without you. You're not that important. And Tamal Krishna Goswami, but he was attached. He was very attached to that service. You may recall that he had left India earlier. He was the GBC of India, and he had left specifically to perform that service. And he did it in a very Tamal Krishna Goswami way, which means massive success. Sterling silver. And so he was putting up an argument, and eventually Prabhupada said, okay, you don't have to go to China, but you can't do anything else either. I'm going to take away all of your responsibilities, and you sit down in Mayapur here and you just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and be happy. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj ultimately had to surrender. And of course he always did. So, and the rest is history. Actually, Prabhupada himself decided sometime shortly in the future from that point. He decided that now is not the right time because this is just after the Cultural Revolution in Red China, and so it wouldn't work. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj, true to his nature, never forgot that instruction. And just a few years later, he made sure that he went back there at great personal difficulty. Actually, he was threatening his life. He was risking his life to go back to mainland China, which he did. And he also, the way that he was doing so was also highly criticized, because whatever you do, if it's big enough, people are going to criticize it. So that the rest was history. But my point is this. At the time that they were arguing, Tamal Krishna Goswami, one of his arguments was that Madhavish can go, or Trivikram Swami can go. And Prabhupada said, no, I don't want them to go, I want you to go. This is the point. Because he knew very well, this person doesn't fail. And this person, only this person, really has the qualifications required for this job. Now we have so many devotees, even here in Vrindavan they come, in Mayapur every year they're coming, Chinese devotees. They all have to thank Tamal Krishna Maharaj for that. one of his great contributions, only one of his great contributions. Shall I say anything about London, Paris, India, everywhere? Everywhere he went, he had this Midas touch, that everything he was involved in, it turned to gold, and it made Prabhupada rich. We should appreciate. Prabhupada had this empowerment from Lord Chaitanya to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world for the first time. Well, at least in a long time. Anarpita Chayim Chirat. But that is, Prabhupada also knew that that was not one man's business. He knew that he needed many persons to help him, and Tamal Krishna Goswami was one of the most important, maybe the most important of all of those. Definitely Prabhupada's right-hand man, definitely such valued contribution to ISKCON. Should not be forgotten. It's very gratifying to see that you all have come today to remember his legacy and to be inspired by it, and to pray also at his lotus feet that somehow, someday, in some small way, we can all emulate his transcendental character and maybe approach some degree of the seva bhava that he naturally had and exhibited for the betterment of this movement and Srila Prabhupada's service. So I'll stop here. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Gurudev Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prabhu. Now I would like to request Mr. Vrindavan to
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadandigam Aradanaschanandan Dhairidam Yache Puna Puna Srimarupa Padambujo Dulisyam Janma Janmani Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Manchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindhu Vaivachan Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. So we're all gathered here today on this first day of the bright half of the month of Falgun, the very month that our most merciful Savior Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu deigned to appear in this horrible world to save us from this blazing fire of material existence. This day is also the day of the disappearance of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, who, as we say his prayer, he was the one who pointed out the birthplace. He confirmed Bhaktivinoda's research. Vora Vibhava Bhumestram. He showed that Vora Avirbhav Bhumi, that place where Lord Chaitanya appeared. Is also Rasikanand's disappearance day. On the same day, our very dear godbrother Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj left this world in Sri Mayapur Dham. And as Prabhuji said, it's impossible to, in just a few minutes, enumerate the glories of Tamal Krishna Goswami. It just, you could go on. He said in Salem he went on for 2 hours. And even that's hardly anything. Because he was he was the main general in Srila Prabhupada's army. Prabhupada was the Senapati of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's army, but the Senapati of our ISKCON was definitely Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. And as Prabhuji pointed out, his main thing was he was completely surrendered. I just got a book, one of Tripika Maharaj's disciples gave me his remembrance of Srila Prabhupada. So he just told the same story that Prabhuji mentioned. He just said, well, I might as well go to China. And Prabhupada said, yes. And he fought like anything, but ultimately he showed that one has to surrender to the will of the spiritual master. And I've had the pleasure, many times when the Chinese devotees come here, I'm the one who gets to take them around. And they're so sweet. And it's only because of the determination and perseverance of Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. And there's huge festival going on in Mayapur. And of course, we've read the story how he was the one who went there and finalized the negotiations. Those days it wasn't easy. In fact, just to finalize everything, even the number of every single bill that they paid for that land had to be notarized down, noted down. In those days, there wasn't 2,000 rupee notes, there weren't 500 rupee notes, there was only 100 rupee notes. But we can't imagine the joy he had in his heart when he presented that deed to Srila Prabhupada. And now we have this beautiful TOVP coming up in this beautiful place in Mayapur, all due to because Prabhupada knew if there's something impossible, then Tamal Krishna Maharaj could do it. And I remember I always used to see him, because my mind is all day long just thinking how to get some sense gratification, how to squeeze out some sense gratification. But I saw Tamal Krishna's mind, I could see the wheels turning, just 24 hours a day, he was just thinking what he could do to please Srila Prabhupada. He said, as Prabhuji said, he set the perfect example of a disciple, always thinking how to, he wasn't thinking about his own sense of gratification, always how to please Prabhupada. And somehow or other, I was president of Portland Temple. It's one of the few places, as Prabhuji pointed out, all the temple presidents were up in arms. But somehow we just appreciated it. He and Tamal would always come to Portland. He loved Portland because I was there. And he took a few devotees. Mostly he took newcomers who were just, wobbling on the edge. What, should I join? Should I not join? But our Portland Temple was so nice. We were always having devotees join. It was just so nice to have his wonderful classes and Vishnu Jan Maharaj's wonderful classes. We never bothered them. They always had open invitation. Many places they didn't want to see him, but at least in Portland he was welcome there. And as Prabhuji said, whatever he took up, he was never defeated. But I have I'm the only one who actually defeated him one time. Because we had a very good friend, used to come every Sunday. Somehow we became such friends. I knew he would never become a devotee. He was initiated by Neem Karoli Baba of, Baba Ramdas fame. And he had met Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and he told him, I'd like to worship Sitaram, and Prabhupada told him, that's very nice. And it was actually through that friend that I met Steve Jobs. You remember in his address, he told about how he used to walk across town to come to because myself and my wife Akuti, we would cook that wonderful feast that he would walk across town to take. So he was a very, very dear friend, and we would just come and chant, and he had been to India, and I'd never been to India. That was so amazing. You know, he'd just tell us stories about India and about Banki Bihari. Everybody comes and there's so much excitement, and they open the curtain and everybody, you know, screams, you know, Banki Bihari Lal Ki. We would just relish it. We had such a deep relationship. So one day he bought a tambura for the temple from Ricky Ram, who was a guy who used to make the same instruments that George Harrison used. So it was huge, inlaid with ivory and everything, big tambura like this, had 5 strings, not the 4 strings. You know, usually the ding 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 ding. This one ding 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 ding, something like that. It was anyway. It was amazing tambura. So he was a very good friend of the temple who had given it. Anyway, he and Vishnujan came, and they saw this tambura, and they decided that they wanted it. And somebody came up to my office and said, Dinabandhu, some of the devotees just took the tambura onto Maharaj's bus. So I immediately understood what was up. And so I had one devotee, Hridayananda Maharaj, used to say, he cruises at 1,000,000 miles. Because every temple's got their space case, you know. And I said, no, you don't know Anubhavananda. And anybody, no, in Vrindavan we got this guy, in LA we got this guy, in Chicago we got this guy. And after 2 days there, I said, Dinabandhu, there's nobody like this guy in the movement anywhere. So I knew he would be totally transcendental to the vibes, wouldn't understand what was going on. So I said, Anubhavananda, go down and get that tambura off the bus. You know? So he couldn't understand anything. He went down, picked up the tambura, and everybody was giving him the evil eye, and he couldn't figure it out, you know, because he was cruising at 1,000,000 miles. So he got the tambura, and I locked it up, you know. Then Tamal came, and he had this little tiny tambura with plastic, instead of ivory, it had plastic, and, you know, real tinny sound. And he was going on, this is Vishnujan's tambura, you know, this is empowered by Narad Muni. I can still hear his voice, you know. You know, if that tambura stays here in Portland, only the people of Portland will see it, but this one will go all over America. Everyone will see this tambura. But I was thinking, there's such a good friend. If I give away the tambura that he's donated to the, I said, it's not mine. He donated to the temple. It's a good friend. How can I give it away? Anyway, somehow or other, he didn't succeed. Everything else, as Maharaj said, he succeeded. And somehow I have the fame that I defeated him. I didn't sleep that night. But anyway, he always was very kind to me. He loved our Portland temple. So I'm going to take much time because there's many people that want to speak. So because we can just go on forever telling his glories. But he had very much great affection. Even that last time in Mayapur I was there, he was so happy to see me. He embraced me so sweetly. Because somehow in his later years, because we've heard, you know, how he was very heavy, but in his later years he was becoming sweeter and sweeter and sweeter, and he mellowed out quite a bit. It was just so nice. Anyway, when he disappeared, I wrote a little thing that I'd like to read for your pleasure. In the courtyard of Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, there stood a tall and shady Tamal tree. Tamal trees are strong and provide very dense, cooling shade from the blazing sun. It stood there for years, decorating one corner of the temple courtyard, and no one could ever imagine such a wonderful tree would leave us. But one day, unexpectedly, he left. And originally that Tamal tree was small and not so beautiful. The architect planned to cut him down as he was in the way of laying out the temple. Srila Prabhupada intervened and saved that Tamal tree. In the same way, Srila Prabhupada found one unkempt fellow living in a tree. There was in Northern California, there was a ranch, I guess, commune you would say those days, called Morning Star. And many people, I think Madhavisa also joined there, and many, many people joined there. Tamal was living in a tree. So, unkempt fellow living in a tree, and saved him from being cut down by the onslaught of Maya. Just as Prabhupada had protected the Tamal tree in the courtyard, and it grew into a lovely tree loved by all, Prabhupada protected this Tamal, and he grew into a wonderful devotee, respected by all. Tamal trees are very strong and can weather all types of difficult conditions. So our Tamal was very strong, and Srila Prabhupada used his services in the most difficult situation. The Tamal tree is famous for his very dense foliage. Our Tamal was in the same way, filled with unlimited amounts of knowledge of Krishna. Those dense leaves of the Tamal tree provide pleasing shade for all from the hot summer sun. You'll see now the Tamal tree will lose all its leaves, then they'll come back very thick, and you'll see Tamal trees very, very thick foliage. They give so much shade from the hot sun that's coming now. Those dense leaves of the Tamal tree provide pleasing shade for all from the hot summer sun. So Tamal, filled with devotion for Srila Prabhupada, gave soothing shelter to so many souls from the blazing sun of material existence. The wood of Tamal trees is extremely hard and difficult to cut, but the leaves of the Tamal tree are especially smooth and soft. Krishna's soft fingers are called pallav, meaning soft newly grown leaves. I once showed the soft newly grown leaves of the Tamal tree to Umapati Swami. He remarked that in the very old days on 26 2nd Avenue, Srila Prabhupada had to show them how to put on tilak. Most of us probably don't even remember who taught us how to put on tilak. But in those days on 26 2nd Avenue, there was no one else except Srila Prabhupada. His soft, delicate fingers running up their foreheads felt just like this Tamal leaf. You'll see that in a couple of months, that new leaves will come. And you can get just a hint. This is a material thing, but it gives you some indication what Krishna's touch is like. His soft, delicate fingers running up their foreheads felt just like this Tamal leaf. Our Tamal was also extremely firm in his service to Srila Prabhupada and was very stern in keeping others in Prabhupada's line. Still, he was very soft and caring for all the devotees around him. In the beginning of the hot season, the Tamal tree becomes filled with thousands of small yellowish white bell-shaped flowers that exude a subtly sweet perfume. Especially early in the morning, you will find hundreds of humming bees attracted by that scent, bumbling here and there, extracting the nectar from those fragrant flowers. Because by the time the Tamal starts to bloom, then the sun is coming up early. So right after Mangalartik, if you go under that tree, you'll sense that smell, and as you're absorbing that fragrance, suddenly you notice there's a sound, and it seems like the tree is vibrating, and then you'll suddenly look in the shadows, in the early morning shadows, you'll see all these little bumblebees. And then as they come up to the flowers, their wings hit the leaves. It's so sweet. When the breeze blows, you can catch the fragrance, even in the Gurukul building. Our Tamal scented the world with the sweet fragrance of Radha and Krishna's pastimes and the glory of Vrindavan. I never heard anyone glorify Vrindavan like Tamal Krishna Maharaj. But unlike the Tamal tree, he did this in all seasons and times. Many bee-like devotees, buzzing with the Mahamantra, used to always surround him, drinking this relishable nectar of Krishna Leela and kirtan ras. Because we saw especially that last time in Mayapur, every night he had all the devotees come and do kirtan. He was really into relishing kirtan and getting devotees to relish kirtan, because this is what Krishna consciousness is all about, relishing the Mahamantra. And this fragrance spread not just nearby, but throughout the entire world. No one imagined our beautiful stout Tamal tree would soon leave us. But one day he fell to the ground and was gone. No one can imagine that our Tamal would leave us so soon, but one day he left us. In the holy Dham, it was gone. Now we sit here and weep with only the memories of our Tamals to keep us alive. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki!
Thank you very much. Now I would like to request the sponsor of the program.
Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshatarane. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki. I'm sure that both Mukunda Datta and Dinabandhu Prabhu glorified Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because seeing how Prabhupada, being ordered by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to spread this message of Krishna consciousness, and the struggle to convince even one person to assist him in this mission, and then somehow miraculously Srila Prabhupada brought him to Radha Damodar temple, cleared his P form, his visa, his passport. Book 1 of Bhagavatam, Book 2, Book 3 were printed. Somehow everybody was denying, but Prabhupada's determination was so strong. He said, I was dreaming of going to America. I was making plans to go to America to fulfill the mission of my Guru Maharaj Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And in the very beginning, especially those devotees that assisted Srila Prabhupada, I could see Krishna's hand, it just orchestrating the whole explosion of the Hare Krishna movement. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj played a very important part with his determination. I remember hearing one class, he was giving class, and some things went on, and the Kanshal blew. He said, no, I have so much more to say. I want to, he was so eager to preach, to give guidance and just like Srila Prabhupada, he was always very enthusiastic to spread the message of Krishna consciousness and glorify Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, glorify his spiritual master. So we see how Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Radha Damodar preaching party, and just really was a pioneer in helping to spread this Krishna consciousness and assist Srila Prabhupada in many ways. It's not that everybody has the ability to carry out important missions. Srila Prabhupada was depending on someone competent, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very competently executing the desires of Srila Prabhupada, and also increasing this explosion of the Hare Krishna movement. I remember we were in his house here in Vrindavan, and we'd have some nice lunches, because I think Gopal Raj was cooking. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj very much enjoyed taking prasad with God brothers, and he was saying that he was just really eager to give this realization of the importance of Braj, the importance of bhakti, and the importance of increasing our spiritual advancement to all who have taken shelter from his disciples in particular. And I was also there in Mayapur during that time when the kirtans were very, very sweet, very thick, and devotees were rolling and having so much fun with sadhu sangha and kirtan. The kirtan was very pleasurable. And naturally we're all shocked and feel great separation from such a great general. We can't understand the plan of the Lord, how he sends certain personalities to come, do a very important mission, take care of planting so many seeds and starting the China project and Philippines, many islands, and all over the world as a sannyasi and a submissive servant of Srila Prabhupada, and feeling very encouraged and enthusiastic also in his academic pursuits. He went to university in Cambridge, studying philosophy, religion, philosophy, because Srila Prabhupada showed interest that if the leaders, scientists, education, people who are in leadership positions, especially philosophically, this is the main advantage, is that we have Guru Parampara. We have Krishna, Brahma, Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Srila Prabhupada, and his sincere followers and disciples. And if you read Tamal Krishna Maharaj's book, Memories, what's it entitled? The book? Huh? Yeah, Servant of the Servant. It was really nice. I remember many, many years ago I read that. And just by remembering and glorifying and appreciating the service of those who are fortunate enough to have Prabhupada's association and fortunate enough to have devotional service, by their example, by their enthusiasm to let it spill over to all of us, that we should, the reason why Prabhupada made this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, so we can all come together and inspire one another in congregation and glorify Krishna, because Krishna is not in the heart of the mystics, the great yogis, but he's there where the devotees are glorifying him, where the devotees are doing kirtan, where the devotees are preaching Krishna consciousness. So he was eager to preach, and he did it very powerfully and very wonderfully. And he had to set high standards. Srila Prabhupada was very articulate, very exacting, just like Jamuna Mata. She was very expert and very meticulous about perfection. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Goswami, he was also very meticulous that the servants are served nicely. You're cooking, you cook first class. You preach enthusiastically. So these are great examples to follow in the footsteps of wonderful Vaishnavas who have done remarkable work for spreading Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada is happy. If you make Srila Prabhupada happy, then guaranteed you're going back home, back to Godhead. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj Ki. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let us request to Holiness Bhakti Narsingh Swami Maharaj.
Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshirmitam Jana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. First, I would like to thank the organizers for asking us over for this very wonderful event, and also to my seniors seated here. I feel very small because I'm just a small kid in ISKCON, having come to ISKCON in 1980s, so I missed all the nectar of 1970s, 1960s. I'm just getting it from those who were there. In the 1980s, during the Zonal Acharya period, we used to see all these great personalities from the ISKCON TV videos, ISKCON communications videos, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Jayapataka Maharaj, and many other great leaders in ISKCON. And I never thought that I would see them in person, because at that time we were separated according to the zones. It so happened that in 1992 I came to Vrindavan for the first time. At that time I was based in Birmingham, England. There was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I saw him coming. I was thinking, wow, my God, this is Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I could see the marking. That's really him. He's the only one that had that marking. I'm so fortunate. I always saw him on ISKCON TV. Now I'm seeing him. Oh, I was shocked. And I was so happy because I always wanted to meet Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I used to hear his lectures. So that year in 1992, Tamal Krishna Maharaj took us on Braj Parikrama, and I got really to get first hand of his association. And he was such a leader that even meeting him for the first time, we just accepted, yeah, I'm with the general here. He knows exactly where we are going, what we are going to do. Yes, that was it. So then after that I went to Mayapur for the first time. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj came there, so he took us for Navadip Mandal Parikrama. He had come from China with many Chinese hats for us to be protected from the sun. Yeah, I realized, yeah, he's really a leader. He gave everybody the hats from China. It was very nice. And of course, he came also when I went back to England. He came to Bhakti Vrindavan to address us as Sankirtan devotees. Those were few experiences that I had with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, apart from hearing his lectures and videos. So that way, I think that was the last time also. I think it was the last time I saw him, I was with him in person. But I think in ISKCON you cannot write the history of ISKCON without Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Yeah, he's just everywhere in ISKCON history. We talk about Mumbai, he was there during the struggle when Prabhupada was fighting for Mumbai. And then when Prabhupada wanted to establish Mayapur, he was in the forefront, getting the land in Mayapur. It's amazing. So just from reading the Lamrita, Tamal Krishna Maharaj is everywhere in ISKCON forefront during the pioneering days. So we always took inspiration from him, even though we were not in his zone, but he was such an inspirational leader that I always wanted to meet him, and by Krishna's grace, I got to meet him in Vrindavan. What I took from him is his determination. Yeah, if Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted to do something, he would go out of his way to make it happen. Prabhupada sent him to China. In those days, no one thought someone can start the Krishna consciousness movement in China, but he went there, and today we see so many devotees from China. Whenever I see a Chinese devotee, I remember Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So it's such a very inspirational leader that in the early days, in the 1980s, we were very much inspired by Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Of course, you talk about preaching in USA, his Sankirtan team, Radha Damoda, they were flooding the books all over USA. So when we read about how they were traveling, distributing books, as brahmacharis, we used to be very inspired. So that way, when you read the Lilamrita, Tamal Krishna Maharaj is there with Prabhupada everywhere. Sankirtan, management, GPC, he's there. He's a very, very inspiring leader amongst many of our leaders. Of course, we have so many examples, but for me, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was the main person that inspired me in Sankirtan and my life in devotional service. Today, I would like to offer my humble obeisances and thank him very much for his contribution in Prabhupada's mission. Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Thank you very much, His Holiness Bhakti Narasimha Swami Maharaj. Now I would like to request His Holiness Jayadeva Swami Maharaj.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shanti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Pashtute Satarane Vansha Golpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo. The one time here in Vrindavan, Tamal Krishna Maharaj invited me to stay with him during Kartik in his house for Kartik month. So we got to spend nice time together. I saw that every day he would invite different devotees to come for lunch. And he would choose very carefully who was going to come, who else was going to come, what combinations of people. And he had different interests. Sometimes he had some agenda, wanted to accomplish something. Sometimes he just wanted to cultivate a friendship with someone or find out something about someone, get to know the person more. And he enjoyed providing nice prasadam, pleasing the devotees. He would like to know what the person liked, or he would like to prepare prasadam, have prasadam prepared in such a way that the devotees would be happy. That was, I saw that. He didn't just want to arrange for taking prasadam and being happy himself, but he took the opportunity to associate with devotees purposefully or for with whatever thoughts were in his mind. He saw that every day I was chanting one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I would chant the Sanskrit for one chapter. I had a little verse book. So he liked that. He said, oh, that's a good idea, so let's chant together. So then the next day we chanted together, but he wanted to go very fast and I wanted to go slow. And I wouldn't speed up and he wouldn't slow down. I think that sort of sums up our relationship. I knew that if I worked, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was so capable and so expert and so good at what he did, that I knew that if I placed myself under his training, under his care, I would get first-class training. Like, you know, my brahmachari days. I would get first-class training if I placed myself under Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And I knew I never would. I'm too independent and stubborn, and he's not a person to train independent, stubborn people. But nonetheless, I respected him enormously and appreciated him enormously. He was systematic. When his lectures are sometimes amazing, you know, they're not just, you sit down and give a lecture and sort of wherever it takes you. It's all thought out carefully. He had tremendous attachment for Srila Prabhupada, and that's the other time that we were together here in Vrindavan, was in Prabhupada's last days. And there I got to see with what affection and with what expertise he served Prabhupada. It wasn't easy to serve Srila Prabhupada in those days. It's not easy to serve, it wasn't easy to serve Srila Prabhupada in those days. There were so many things, from the smallest to the largest, that needed to be seen to. And he was up to the task. He was so, had the right combination of devotion and capability. So many times over the years, I've thought, where's Tamal Krishna Maharaj when we need him? We had some, what shall we say? Difficulties in regard to our temple in Brooklyn, New York. There was, anyway, it finally turned into a legal fight, and the whole, so many times during that whole enterprise, we nearly lost the temple, and it became a legal fight, and so many other things were involved with that. And so many times I thought of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. You know, what would TKG do? Or just thinking of TKG. Sometimes you get just good ideas just thinking of TKG, or just sometimes by being involved, we would think of TKG, and that would be our good fortune. You can see I'm not systematic like him. I'm just picking thoughts. In his later years, probably people may have already said this, he was very sweet. In his, not that he wasn't sweet earlier, but the sweetness wasn't always the first quality you'd know. But in his later years, he was very soft and sweet. And that was so nice, that Vaishnava quality of sweetness. In his last week in Mayapur, he had organized, and I suppose this again, I don't know if I'm being repetitive, but he'd organized a kirtan program every night. And it was, again, just so sweet, because he kept himself in the background. He provided the venue. Things went on in his flat until it got too big. The program got too big. But he provided the venue. He arranged for some small prasadam for everyone after the program. He would, lock in the kirtan leaders, Niranjan Maharaj, Shivaram Maharaj, Indradumna Maharaj, and so on. And then he would just be in the background chanting. He didn't lead, he didn't direct, wasn't highly visible. He was just appreciating being present in the kirtan with these wonderful devotees leading and wonderful devotees chanting. And just being, I think especially since so much of his association then was the academic, dry, speculative, dangerous, non-devotee population of Cambridge. So to be in Mayapur with the devotees must have been especially relishable. But I saw that he was just, that's what he was doing. And the kirtans were so wonderful. I remember Yadabara Prabhu sometimes said that week changed his life. Just those kirtans changed his life. And when Maharaj left, I was in Mayapur, and there was a memorial program. And I was especially struck by the devotees who spoke, because, okay, Jayapataka Maharaj spoke, and all leading devotees spoke. But here were these devotees that so many of them I didn't know, so many of them were not headline devotees. So many of them were, God brothers and God sisters, or other devotees who'd been around, but may not have been that well known, or they were well known, but you would have thought, what do they have to do with Tamal Krishna Maharaj? And I was so struck by the testimony of devotee after devotee about how Tamal Krishna Maharaj had helped them in their spiritual life. Particularly how he'd gone out of his way to help them, how he'd taken a special interest in helping them. And it wasn't, at least known to me, it wasn't something that, everybody knows, but just he had taken the trouble over the years to help so many devotees in their Krishna conscious life, in their service to Srila Prabhupada, and devotees spoke about that with great gratitude. I don't want to take much time. There was a meeting a meeting arranged by the GBC with Srila B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's godbrother. Way back when there was some difficulty because various ISKCON devotees who'd felt disenfranchised or alienated had taken shelter of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and had become something of a force, an alternative force to the mainstream of ISKCON. And I can say the somewhat deformed mainstream of ISKCON at the time. And there had been various attempts by the ISKCON leadership to sort of go head-to-head against Srila Sridhar Maharaj, or to counteract the efforts of the devotees who were openly canvassing in ISKCON to pull in adherents or whatever you'd say. And finally, the GBC decided that there should be a meeting and we should offer apologies to Srila Sridhar Maharaj because serious offenses had been committed. And sort of the idea was, okay, good fences make good neighbors. We'll mind our own business. We won't hurt you. You please don't hurt us, and let us carry on with our work with without needless friction. Others might have a different historical view, but that's how it appeared to me. Anyway, a delegation was appointed. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was, of course, made the leading person in the delegation. Some other GBC members went. I wasn't a GBC member, but I also took part. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj began by saying, I think that we've offended you, so we've come to offer our apologies. And tangential to, anyway, Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, I never felt that you offended me. He said, but if you think so, he said, then officially I forgive you. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj was speaking about previous experiences, previous meetings that he'd had with or interactions he'd had with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and that Srila Sridhar Maharaj had with Srila Prabhupada. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was speaking to Srila Sridhar Maharaj about those things. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj was responding in a cordial and affectionate manner. And he said, Swami Maharaj told me that I would have made him the Acharya for ISKCON. But he is, and then he turned to one of his disciples looking for the translation of a Bengali word, said, a bully. That Tamal Krishna Maharaj was seen as a bully. That is to say that he's so forceful that people wouldn't have agreed. And everyone sort of had a good chuckle over that. But there's practically not a significant area of ISKCON that Tamal Krishna Maharaj, of ISKCON's history, that Tamal Krishna Maharaj didn't have something to do with. He was a person that, because he was so devoted and reliable and capable, he was the person that so often Srila Prabhupada would call upon to get something important done. So he was what he said he was, servant of the servant. Servant of Srila Prabhupada, who is the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of. So I offer him my heartfelt respects and obeisances. And sometimes I think about what ISKCON would be if he were still here, what things he would be pushing forward with, what things he might be setting straight. So as I think about Prabhupada that way, what he might be promoting, what he might be slashing. So I think about Tamal Krishna Maharaj also that way, and I miss him. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swami Maharaj. Now I'd like to request Sri Bhakti Narayana Swami Maharaj
I'm looking at the programs till 12 o'clock, right? And it's till 1 o'clock? Okay, good. Stop. Thank you. No, it's just my nature. We used to say that we thought Tamal Krishna Maharaj could stop time. He was that influential. My relationship with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was like my older brother. And just as I fought with my older brother when I was a young, growing up, I often fought with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. We had different ideas about things. But underneath it all was a deep, deep respect and affection. He used to come. I was in charge of a little preaching center, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it was a fantastic time for preaching in America. And I would have a whole group of young people getting ready to move into the temple. In those days, you were in or you were out. There wasn't a whole lot of area on the sides. And he would come through twice a year and pick all of our fruit. I didn't mind because I knew they were in good hands, you know. And we would talk. We would spend time together. I remember, what is this? It's a big distraction. Just don't. Just don't. It's so easy to not do. I remember walking out the door. We were going to go to a program together. You know, other devotees were saying about Tamal being organized and precision and didn't waste time. So we were going somewhere together. He said, he checked out his clothes, everything matched. He said, okay. He looked at this, he said, Tilak, Japamala, a devotee, let's go. Then he went out the door. He was like girding himself for the fight against Maya. Vishnu and John Swami, they were an interesting combination. They used to travel together. Vishnu John Swami was the one who would arrange for ice cream and all the devotees at 11 o'clock at night, you know. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj is the one who'd give everybody, you know, blast them when they all fell asleep during the class, you know. And I was married at one time, and my wife was an expert cook. And Tamal had just come from America. We cleared all the brahmacharis, all the grihastas out of the house. We did it twice a year, and we just let the Radha Damodar party take over the house and preach, and they would set up on the campus. So Tamal Krishna, just to finish with my wife, and Tamal, she was a good cook, and we knocked ourselves out. We cooked, there's different ratings of feasts. There was Sadaputa's rating, the best feast is a 3-jai feast. And this was a 3-jai feast. And Tamal, this is too much salt, this was cooked too long. Actually, it was all excellent. This is too... And my wife was a little, he could take, you know, he was a very sensitive person, actually. He could tell that he'd hurt her feelings. And then Tamal said, he said, actually, I don't know how to cook. He said, but I'm an expert critic. And actually, it was true. He knew the standard. He knew the standard for everything, you know. He really knew. So we were standing, Vishnu Jan Maharaj was chanting. Prabhupada said his voice could enchant the world. And Tamal and I were sitting, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and I were sitting on the side, just observing the scene. And a professor came up, top professor, chairman of the Department of Religions, University of Michigan. You know, it's 40,000 students. No slow. And he was going on with whatever he was, you know, condescendingly speaking to the devotees, speaking to Tamal and I. I mean, I rightly so with me, but not with Tamal. So Tamal asked him, he said, have you read Bhagavad Gita? The man said, of course I've read Bhagavad Gita. Tamal said, did you understand it? The man said, of course I understood it. And Tamal said to him, so what are you going to do? And that the idea that the Bhagavad Gita had a conclusion, that it was a call to action, that wasn't even on the man's radar. And you could see he actually stunned, and he had to think. I mean, the conversation went on from there, but just those 3 questions, Tamal cut down his pride, put him in the right box, showed him what the meaning of Bhagavad Gita was, and turned his life in a different direction. I was so impressed. He didn't waste time, you know. This is off the track, but I don't want to forget it. Tamal told me this personally. Because he used to tell me stuff. He was a brahmachari, and Prabhupada, he was in Los Angeles. Prabhupada was setting up the LA temple as the standard. And devotees would come from New Zealand, they'd come from UK, they'd learn how to do book distribution, how to keep accounts, how to do deity worship, so many things. So Prabhupada would sit with different devotees and take the Sunday feast. It was a side room. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was sitting here, Prabhupada was sitting on a little bit of a raised seat, and so Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and a devotee named Jai Gopal. Now, anyone who knows Jai Gopal, he was an infamous prasadam hound. Thief. I could give a whole description of that. And Prabhupada would sometimes take a bite out of a samosa and distribute it, or a bite out of something he'd distribute to the different leaders. It was Maha Prasadam. And Prabhupada took a bite out of a gulab jamun and Tamal told me this personally, and put it on Tamal Krishna Maharaj's plate. Distribute it to him. And Tamal was just relishing it. You know, in those days we consumed vast quantities of prasadam. We were young men and we took shelter of prasadam. So Tamal finished off one plate and reverentially transferred his gulab jamun to the next, finished off that plate, reverentially transferred his gulab jamun. So he was on his 3rd plate and he was looking this way at Prabhupada. He told me he was meditating on Prabhupada's ear. And we think how Prabhupada's ear looked like Lord Buddha's ear. And then he was thinking how it was perfectly shaped like a transcendental radar dish for catching Shabda Brahman, you know. So he was relishing his meditation on Srila Prabhupada's ear. And in that distraction, you know, here's Prabhupada, here's Tamal meditating on Prabhupada's ear. Jai Gopal reached over, grabbed that Mahaprasadam Gulab Jamun, and ate it. Tamal said, without a second thought, he grabbed him, and he was going to whack him. But he had the wherewithal to ask Prabhupada, can I hit him? Can I hit him? Prabhupada said, what did he do? Tamal said, he stole my Gulab Jamun. Prabhupada said, Vaikuntha qualifications. Tamal told me, Prabhupada said there's 2 types of devotees. There's devotees who distribute prasadam and devotees who steal prasadam. And they're both transcendental. He told me another prasadam story. I mean, I don't want to take up too much time because there's so many things to say. Just like, you know, if you accomplish something, you like to bring it to Tamal. You know, if you opened a temple or you made some devotees or you had a big Christmas marathon, you know, in our mind it was, you'd report it to your older brother. So in so many ways, we miss that. We can't do that with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He's not here. But we can think, you know, also, anyway, I don't want to go too far afield. So Tamal told me this. Prabhupada was speaking at Radha Damodar Temple on the Nectar of Devotion. I think that was in 72. Anyone who has not played those lectures by Prabhupada speaking on the Nectar of Devotion, it should just be in the canon of every single devotee. You should hear those. I try to hear them at least once a year, just like I try to hear Sadhaputa's lectures on Origins magazine. They should be in your consciousness. So after speaking at the Radha Damodar Temple, I think the devotees were staying at Fogel Ashram, or I don't know where we were staying. The temple wasn't built yet. Maybe Prabhupada was staying on the land. I can't quite remember. But somehow or other, we would leave the devotees. I wasn't there. The devotees would leave Radha Damodar Temple, and then they would walk back to wherever they were staying, and they would go through Loy Bazaar. Now, Prabhupada was saying that you can't have a pinch of material desire and go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada had warned us all, you know, you're coming to the West, they think you're all monkeys. Please don't eat in public, you know, we were representing Srila Prabhupada, and they were quite wary of us in Vrindavan in those days, that we hadn't, you know, who are they? We're just hippies, or it's a fad, you know, what will they, you know. So Prabhupada had told us how to behave and what to speak of in saffron cloth. So as the devotees rounded the corner, coming down Loy Bazaar, it's early in the morning, and there was a sweetwala, and he just put out fresh burfi, sandesh. And he's, you know, for him, they're brajbasi. If they can feed a sadhu in the morning, it's very nice for them. So he said, please take. Tamal leading the band, they soldiered on. Got a little further down Loy Bazaar. It was nice, fresh Mysore pak, or whatever it was. Please, take. The devotees wavered, but they carried on. Everyone looked at Tamal and Tamal. Now you have to appreciate how hard it was living in India. If you wanted to drink water, you couldn't drink any water because you'd get horribly sick. You know, Mahatma Gandhi's Revenge, Bombay Blues, Delhi Belly, well, you're just finished. They used to get limcas, which there were ants in them. They didn't even put the caps on properly. But at least the water was purified beforehand. So you're dehydrated out there all day preaching, and you drink a warm limca. We had hired cooks. Breakfast was a big lump of rice that was raw on top, burnt on the bottom, and solid starch. Just a lump. You'd get dal that was we owe a great debt, like Dinu Bandhu, these devotees that came to India and got the thing rolling. You have no idea what they went through. Dal, no vegetable. Watery dal, as hot, spicy. It went through you like Drano. And if you were lucky, you got a sweet. They'd wave off, there'd be a big block of gore, black with flies. I swear to you. They'd wave off the flies, snap off a piece, and then everybody a little bit of gore. That was breakfast. Maybe a guava if you were lucky. So I want to present the devotees what they were going through. It was extremely, everyone had mosquito bites and we didn't know anything. We cheated left and right. So they wavered at the second stop but soldiered on with Tamal Krishna Maharaj leading. Just as they were about to leave the temptation zone, they would have been free, there was a sweetwala making hot jalebis. He was an old man, the Brahmin thread, clean Brahmin thread, clean white cloth, Sika, picture of Prabhupada. You could see the plate. He just offered the jalebis to Srila Prabhupada. He said, I'm an old man. Make me happy, please. The devotees all looked at Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj broke. And everybody took hot jalebis. You can imagine the scene. You know, the devotees were just getting a little bit of relief from the constant pressure, and jalebi juice all over them. And just then, Prabhupada's car, that little ambassador, came around the corner. And you know Loy Bazaar, it's a narrow, there was nowhere to run, there was nowhere to hide. And everyone looked at Tamal, what to do? Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, just take it on our heads. What can you do? Just bow your heads, take it on your head. And just then, sure enough, Prabhupada was there, told his driver to stop. Prabhupada rolled down his window. Look, I mean, there was nowhere to hide the evidence. I mean, you know, it was obvious what had happened, you know. Prabhupada said, Bengali sweets, essential to life, and drove on. Now, don't take advantage, you know, we have to be careful. But just, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was the leader in so many ways, and he was actually a very warm-hearted, kind person. Just, I want to say two other things. I'm still within my, unless the clock is broken, I'm still okay. When Prabhupada really, really needed something, and nobody else could do it, he would call on Tamal. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me, and he was, I forget how it came up, he wasn't bragging or sharing anything. He was a relatively new sannyasi. He was traveling around. Some other time, remind me how Tamal wound up getting married. I think he had the shortest marriage in ISKCON. Certainly one of them. I'll tell you that some other time we'll tell about that story. But he was traveling all over South India, and he was opening temples and raising money for Bombay with life members and everything. And he came, and maybe Prabhupada was in Delhi or somewhere, and Tamal just came in that night and gave a report to Prabhupada. Oh, I'm traveling here, I'm traveling there, here's this person, here's this contact, this person has pledged this, sharing with Prabhupada the fruit of all of his work. And at the end, Prabhupada got up from behind, and Tamal said, you know, Prabhupada said, Tamal was leaving late that night, or maybe the next morning. He was off again, he was on his, going back to South India to do this and that. And Prabhupada stood up from behind his desk, and he walked and he embraced Tamal Krishna Maharaj. That here he had, you know, he had someone he could count on. He had an intelligent, surrendered, thoughtful sannyasi who was not going to bend or break. And Prabhupada was so pleased. So I just wanted to give two examples of how Prabhupada would call on Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I'm pretty sure it was the big pandal in Mumbai. He told me this. I'm sure it was Mumbai. And you know, Shyam Sundar with the Hare Krishna balloon and all that stuff. It was huge. It was, you know, I don't know what the big paper in Bombay, the Bombay Mail or whatever it is, you know, Hare Krishna's rock Mumbai, you know, or Bombay. But the books were stuck in customs. There was some kind of strike, and nobody could get anything out of the port of Mumbai. You couldn't do it. Now we're talking about big, you know, industrialists, crorpatis, you know, right-hand people of the prime minister. They could not get there. It was violent. Any truck that, you know, they tried to get out of there, the dock workers, because they were on strike, would throw bricks through all the windows and shoot out the tires. You didn't even go in there. And Prabhupada called Tamal and said, how can we have this pandal without books? We have to get the books. Tamal Krishna Maharaj got a lorry, went inside. How he even got them to open the gates, nobody can figure out. Tamal went in. Nobody heard from him. There were no cell phones in those days. No one heard from him. Nobody saw him. 3 days. You know, was he alive? Was he dead? Had they chopped him up and thrown him into the Bay of Bengal? Or, you know, whatever, the other side, the Arabian Sea? And the day before the Pandal, the gates opened. And sitting on the cab, there was the driver, there was an armed guard with a shotgun, and there was Tamal Krishna Maharaj sitting on the cab with his legs crossed, and the whole lorry full of books. And they drove out. That's Tamal Krishna Maharaj. The one other thing was that Prabhupada wanted that land in Mayapur. He wanted to build his America House, I forget what he was calling it in those days, but a place where his disciples could come and take advantage of the holy Dham and be peaceful, you know, at least something that had some decent standard. And he had to have land, and frankly, his godbrothers were blocking him at every possible turn. Prabhupada couldn't get the land. I forget exactly how it worked. There was a chance of getting some land. There was a secret offer. And Prabhupada sent Tamal Krishna Maharaj out. Tamal told me that Prabhupada told him how to make a money belt out of Brahmin underwear. You know, pack up all the, I think they had only small notes. I forget how it was. Yeah, it was only 100 rupees. Just imagine. I don't remember what the price was, and I don't know when we got that land. 72, 73, something like that. But, you know, and it's dangerous. It was full of rogues and thieves. In Bengal and Bihar, people used to ride up on horses like the American Westerns and rob trains. Tamal's got to go out there, and it was buying from Muslim farmers. So to go out there and buy from Muslim farmers, to buy the land, and there was all, you could just imagine. These are the same people that tried to hire the local police chief to let them poison Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada sent Tamal out there. With the money, showed him how to put on all the money disguised as a money belt wrapped. Tamal had layers wrapped up like this. And out he went. I think there was a lawyer that went with him. Yeah, there was a lawyer. They stayed at some local temple. And they had to count and write the serial number of every single bill. And just, you can't imagine, but somehow or other, I think Tamal, it took him like 3 or 4 days to just pay them and register the transfer. And same thing, when he came back to Calcutta, you know, it was late at night. Prabhupada was worried. There was no message. You couldn't phone. I mean, you couldn't phone next door. And if you did, it wouldn't be next door. It would be Mr. Sharma down the street. Sharma? I'm not Sharma, you know. So it was late at night, and the Calcutta temple, there used to be a balcony there, and then, of course, you know where Prabhupada's rooms were. Somehow or other, the Chokidar opened the temple. Tamal Krishna Maharaj came in. It's 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night. And the lights on in Prabhupada's room. Tamal told me, the lights on in Prabhupada's room. And Tamal came in, and Prabhupada could tell by his face, but that he'd done it. And he offered obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Srila Prabhupada, the land is now yours. And again, Prabhupada got up, walked around his desk, and embraced Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So all in here, I don't want to take up too much time. We could tell the story, how Tamal wanted to go back. I'll just give you the first intro. Tamal wanted to go back to America and preach. He wanted to preach with Vishnu Jan Swami. He wanted to go on colleges where Prabhupada said our leaders will come from, and it's still true. Prabhupada wanted us on college campuses. And Tamal wanted to go. Prabhupada wouldn't let him go, because he needed him in India. You know, India was... Prabhupada asked for us to send members from India. a few saintly person came. And everyone else, every misfit that couldn't fit in the temple, that you're either going to send them to New Vrindavan or throw them out of the building. Oh, we'll send him to India. I can check my quota there. I mean, it was just wild who was in India. And Tamal had to ride herd over this. Oh, you have no idea. So he wanted to go, and Tamal, and understandably so. So I'll just give you the setup. One day, Tamal told me this. He went into Prabhupada's room and said, Prabhupada, I can't take it anymore. It's so hard to manage in India. It taxes my brain all the time. Prabhupada said, me too. He said, but Prabhupada, I can't even concentrate on class. I'm thinking about how to get the permit for the property and how to deal with this, and I can't even think about class. Prabhupada said, me too. He said, Prabhupada, I can't even concentrate on my japa. Prabhupada said, me too. So when Prabhupada's talking about, what do you say? You know, how can you leave your Guru Maharaj when your own Guru says? And to Tamal's credit, he stayed. Finally, he made a deal with Prabhupada. He made a deal. He said, you let me have 6 months. Let me have 6 months. And Prabhupada was coming to America, landing in New York, one of those wonderful tours. Prabhupada travels across North America, you know, USA and Canada, and then ended at the LA Rath, at the San Francisco Ratha Yatra. And Tamal, when Tamal was focused, by the time Prabhupada arrived in early summer and arrived in San Francisco, because this was the test. Oh, okay, you want to come to America? You think you're a big preacher? Let's see what you can do. That's basically what the Prabhupada taught. I'll give you 6 months, and you better show me some results, or you're coming back to India. I don't think Prabhupada had met Tamal, also practically by deliberately, Tamal had not met Prabhupada till the San Francisco side. That's the way he told it to me. And when he said, Prabhupada, we've done some preaching. Prabhupada's look like was, well, what's that preaching? And over 51 shaved up, tilaked, saffron-dressed young brahmacharis walked in one by one, offered obeisances, put a rose on Prabhupada's desk. Another walked in, offered obeisances, full dandavats, and by the end of the thing, you can imagine Prabhupada had this pile of roses and a room packed with young, intelligent, American brahmacharis. Prabhupada said Tamal was just, Tamal told me that Prabhupada was just like, all right, fine, you know. So, there are some great souls who came from somewhere else and were sent by Mahaprabhu. Anyone who knows me, I don't squander praise. It's not really something I'm known for, and I'm working on it, but that's another story. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj was one of those great heroes who were sent by Mahaprabhu to help Srila Prabhupada launch the Hare Krishna movement. And we can pray to him, we can think about him, we can take his example, and it will deeply enrich our personal lives. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj Ki Jai. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Now I would like to request His Holiness Ved Vyaspriya Swami Maharaj.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Today is very auspicious day of departure of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I remember on 15th March in Mayapur, 15th March of 2002, I was also planning to go on an emergency basis to USA for the sake of my mother's emergency. She had heart wall replacement surgery and I think quadruple bypass. But I didn't have a ticket. I already went a day before to Bhadra Balaram's office in Mayapur to book the ticket. Kala Samwar and his wife were there. They were very happy because she got the ticket to travel with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And they were very happy. In that happiness, they forgot to pick up the ticket, because it was considered to be very, very rare that Mother Vrindavaneshwari, she has to travel with Tamal Krishna. It's a big fortune that they were considering. I didn't have any response for that particular day, but the next day, on 15th March, as if I'm supposed to travel, so all the schedules for the morning Mangalarti and Kirtan and afterwards the Tulsi Puja, all three I have done in that excitement of going. But as soon as the Tulsi Kirtan was over, the news came. It was so much heart-rendering that everybody was shocked. Shivaram Maharaj was the first one to jump up and ran out of the temple. I didn't know where they will be going, but I couldn't go either. But Prabhu Prabhu, he was there. He said, Maharaj, you go, worship your deity and come back and till I'll keep on chanting. Because we can't do anything other than chant Hare Krishna. The atmosphere was becoming tenser and tenser. And for the first time, the Chinese devotees were coming to celebrate Mayapur Dham along with the Guru Maharaj, who was also coming after 7 years of absence. So there was paradox in the rejoicement at the same time such a calamity that occurred. Chinese were heartbroken. These devotees were heartbroken. On the way, somebody came and just hugged me. Please pray for my Guru Maharaj. And I said, I'm just going to do the service and I will definitely pray. So Prabhu Prabhu continued the kirtan and I came back after worshipping my deities and we took over. That time, to console Chinese devotees was a very, very difficult job. Language problem at the same time, the sentiments are, of course, high. It's after even in the reference to the humanity, it was a completely paradoxical situation. They were in their attire. They were floating like swan on the land of Mayapur. And these devotees were really heartbroken in such a way that nobody can imagine as far as the context of incident that has happened. Then there was a suggestion that we should get together in Bhakti Charu Swami's room and start glorifying Tamal Krishna Maharaj that will appease the Chinese devotees. So for their sake, Sridhar Swami was the one chosen to conduct the eulogy. And I was sitting, whenever they will call me, I would go. But it so happened that my turn come about 1:30. The process of eulogy started at 10 o'clock and my turn came about 1:30. As soon as I got the mic, within 2 minutes, a phone call came for me. And Sridhar Swami said, "Vedas, you got a phone call, you go." I ignored, and I was trying to glorify Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was the only one who introduced me to Srila Prabhupada. And it was indirectly, because he was in Vrindavan, and he told Srila Prabhupada that, "Prabhupada, you anticipated Indian community will be attracted to this new building, 340 West 55th. So here is the first one to move in." So I was very close to Tamal Krishna Maharaj after that incident. And he encouraged me in several ways. So when my turn came, the phone call came, and I didn't respond to Sridhar Swami's call. I ignored, and I kept on eulogizing Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Then again, within 1 minute or two, a phone call came. And Sridhar Swami became so much enraged. He snatched away the microphone from my hand and says, "Go, Singapore Airlines is calling you." And when I die, you tell about me too, that I made you life member. I didn't know what to say, but these words are very, very profound. On 12th March, that was the last day for the GBC meeting, and somehow by what a providence, I didn't know, I didn't approach anybody, but somehow there was a nomination for a GBC candidate, and I didn't know that my name is going to be nominated. Nobody discussed this with me. It was something like a thing working behind me. And it so happened that somebody objected something without foundational thing and this and that, and it created some commotion. But that was happened on the 7th of March. But on 12th of March, which was the last day, it was to be reopened. The case was behind the back burner what they call it. So they took up that fine, and nothing was discussed. But I heard there was some commotion. Later on, somebody told me. Fine. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj came to me, said, Vedyas, hell with this politics. I want you to go to Fiji and help my disciples. This was like a cardinal instruction coming from a very empowered personality who would disappear after 3 days. It struck me so profoundly, that I started going. Of course, I went on that January also. I was in Fiji, and devotees wrote nicely, and he was very much encouraged, and he enthused to uplift the Indian community. Wherever he went, he has shown a big concern for them to take up Krishna consciousness. So, as if this is a divine instruction, I went and started working with the devotee. And we ended up with making a beautiful temple in Singatoka out of that inspiration. Dinabandhu just visited, all right? So, it gives a kind of practical realization that if we take such instructions from empowered personality, which becomes actually manifesting and we must take it as our heart and soul. So that is the nature of pure devotees, that their words are not in vain. We simply have to take up the opportunity and work out. Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Now I would like to request Mukunda Datta Prabhu, our head Pujari. Okay, now yes, Radha Vallabh Prabhu.
कोई और हमें बोल अच्छा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते तमाल कृष्ण गोस्वामी इति नामिने नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे। आज तमल कृष्ण महाराज जी का दिन है। महाराज जी का साथ मुझे प्राप्त हुआ था बॉम्बे से। महाराज का अद्भुत उनका जो व्यवहार है और भक्तों के प्रति जो स्नेह था, प्रेम था और उत्साहित करने के जो उनमें कला है, छोटे छोटे भक्तों को भी उत्साहित करते थे। हालांकि भाषा यहाँ का उनका नहीं था, फिर भी बहुत उत्साहित करते थे। एक बार महाराज श्री यहाँ बैठे थे प्रभुपाद जी के पास में, तो उनसे किसी भक्त ने कहा कि ये राधा वल्लभ प्रभु ना फिजी जाते हैं और रामायण की कथा जानते हैं। तो महाराज ने मुझे बुलाया और बुला के कहा कि फिजी में ना बहुत लोग रामायण के प्रेमी हैं, वहाँ जा कर के रामायण की कथा सुनाओ। तो और मैं भी आ रहा हूँ। उसी साल की बात है जिस साल महाराज जी नहीं रहे, उनका शरीर नहीं रहा। तो मैं तो पहुंचा वहाँ पर न्यूजीलैंड होते हुए, भक्त तो ले गए, तो हम सीधे गए लंबासा में। श्री वेदव्यास प्रिय महाराज जानते हैं लंबासा कहाँ है, सबसे लास्ट में है लंबासा। लंबासा में गए और लंबासा में भी जाकर के उस गांव में गए जहाँ एक रास बिहारी प्रभु महाराज श्री के शिष्य हैं। तो उन्होंने वहाँ महाराज के लिए एक बहुत बढ़िया रूम बनाया था, बहुत बढ़िया रूम बनाया था। गांव में था लेकिन रूम बहुत अच्छा था। तो मैं वहाँ गया तो मैं उस गांव में देखा कि महाराज के प्रति वो जो ग्रामीण लोग थे, जो गांव के वो भाषा नहीं जानते थे, वे लोग भी महाराज से प्रेम करते थे बहुत। महाराज श्री के यदि मैं उनकी कुछ गुणगाथा किया, वहाँ पर कुछ ऐसे माताएं थी, कुछ ऐसे भक्त थे कि उनके आंखों से पानी आ गया और रोने लगे हो। तत्पश्चात संध्या काल का समय था, एक नित्यानंद हॉल भी बना महाराज के लिए कि महाराज जब भी आएंगे इसी में कथा करेंगे। और महाराज श्री के लिए एक छोटा सा रोड था, दोनों रोड के तरफ में तेल के दीप जला करके लोग इंतजार करते रहते थे हमेशा कि महाराज जी आएंगे तो इसी दीप के बीच से जाएंगे। और छोटे छोटे बच्चे शंख बजाते, वहाँ के भक्त लोग बता रहे थे रास बिहारी प्रभु की छोटे छोटे बच्चे शंख बजाते हुए महाराज के पीछे पीछे दौड़ते थे सब वो। जब मैं वहाँ गया तो बोले कि महाराज जी का रूम है, आपको भी इसी में रुकना है रात को। मैंने कहा कि महाराज जी के रूम में मैं कैसे रुक सकता हूँ? बोले कि नहीं, आपको रुकना है इसी रूम में। महाराज श्री का बहुत बढ़िया पिक्चर ऐसा ही जैसे लगा है, ऐसे लगा था। तो मैं बोला कि रूम में तो मैं रुकूंगा लेकिन बिस्तर में नहीं। महाराज श्री के बिस्तर में पिक्चर लगा करके मैं रात में रहा। महाराज श्री उस रूम में थे नहीं, गए नहीं थे, लेकिन उस रूम का जो वाइब्रेशन था, वहाँ का जो वातावरण था, बड़ा अद्भुत था, बड़ा सुंदर था, उसको शब्दों में नहीं कहा जा सकता है। तो महाराज श्री के साथ बड़ा हमारा सुंदर याद रहा। उन्होंने कहा था कि उनके कुछ शिष्य थे न्यूजीलैंड में, तो उन लोगों ने कहा कि हम लोग एक मंदिर बनाना चाहते हैं। तो उन लोगों को भी प्रोत्साहित किया, उत्साहित करके कहा कि ठीक है आप लोग बनाओ, आपके साथ में मेरा आशीर्वाद और मैं हूँ। तो महाराज श्री बहुत कृपालु हैं, भक्तों को उत्साहित करते थे निरंतर। चैंटिंग बहुत अच्छा करते थे, कोई सुंदर कीर्तन कर दे उसके प्रति प्रभावित हो जाते थे महाराज। तो महाराज श्री का आज ये दिन है, मैं भगवान से, प्रभुपाद जी से प्रार्थना करता हूँ। प्रभुपाद जी के तो ऐसे बहुत नियर डियर हैं, वो प्रभुपाद जी के साथ रहे हैं, प्रभुपाद जी की कृपा प्राप्त है उन्हें, प्रभुपाद जी ने कृपा उनको दी है। तो भगवान के धाम में निश्चित गए हैं, उनसे प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि उनके पीछे जितने उनके डिसाइपल हैं, उनके डिसाइपल नहीं हैं, उन पर भी उनकी कृपा बनी रहे और अपने साथ संगी बना करके रखें। तमाल कृष्ण गोस्वामी महाराज की जय श्री।
थैंक यू वेरी मच राधा वल्लभ प्रभु जी। Now I would like to request Sruta Kirti Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvishesa Sanyavare Paskachade Satarni. Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I always think of what should I say. I got to meet him first time 1972, December. Oh no, actually, in October when I came to India. So of course he was here. And then Maharaj, you're going to excuse me for being, I know I got here very late just recently, and I was thinking Maharaj wouldn't go for that at all. Maharaj was a stickler for rules and regulations. I learned that right away when I met him. And also you knew where you stood, where you were down around Maharaj, because I was Prabhupada's servant. So always it was like a shadow. Wherever Prabhupada went, that was my service. Be right there, right behind him, right next to him. And we were coming down Kartikeya Mahadevi's elevator, which could fit one person, two, if you were very tight. So we all came out of Mahadevi's house in the morning to go on the morning walk. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there, Garga Muni, Bhavananda. They had all come to Mumbai while Prabhupada was there. And we left the room, and it was on the second floor. And there was the elevator was there. And Prabhupada got into the elevator. And I, of course, moved to get into the elevator. And Tamal looked at me. he just, what do you think you're doing? And then they went down the elevator. So I had to go down 2 flights of stairs. So I ran down the stairs. The elevator door opened, and Tamal's looking, and he sees Sruta Kirti standing on the other side of the elevator doors, and he goes, Prabhupada, Sruta Kirti's here. Prabhupada looked at him, he said, Kirti means expert. So of course, not getting in, but then I got a little compliment from Prabhupada. I thought I definitely wanted to be here because I know there's a feast in about a half hour or so. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was very expert about prasadam and what he liked, and he trained his disciples. It was around the year 2000, I was in Hawaii. One of his disciples was there, him and his wife. They were managing the kitchen. And I didn't know at the time that they were Maharaj's disciples, but they were so first class. And they were also respectful to Tamal Krishna's godbrother, to myself, which, sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. But the longer I spent around them, the more I could see how nicely they were trained up by Maharaj. They were first class in their service, took everything very seriously. And I kept thinking, I have to write Maharaj. I have to write him. I just want to say, you're really doing first class. What you saw from Prabhupada, you're giving it to your disciples. They were trained, And then he was gone. Just like that, he just gone. Anyway, these are our experiences more and more. Dhritarashtra, the other day, I thought, I'll go see him tomorrow. I'll go see him tomorrow. And then he was gone. This is all training for us, learning separation from Krishna, how to develop love, and then gets taken away so it can increase. So I know it's late, there's others to speak, so I just wanted to say those few words. You can tell, we always say that, you can tell a tree by the fruits. What I saw was very nice disciples that Maharaj had, trained up very nicely. The other thing he did in 1975, as Prabhupada's servant, I would distribute his Mahaprasadam. But first you had to get past Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because he'd eat the entire plate without any second thoughts. It was Prabhupada's Maha, and he also liked it. One day he went in, it was in Mayapur, he went into Prabhupada, and I was sitting there as usual, and he said, Prabhupada, Shuddha Kirti, he makes first-class prasadam. And Prabhupada looked, he kind of chuckled, he said, yes, he makes first-class American prasadam. So that was, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he liked it very much, so, okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Now I would like to request our guest Nagapatni Mataji. Nagapatni Mataji.
Jai, all glories to the assembled devotees. I wasn't particularly close with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, but I will just relay an impression that he had on me that was very significant. But Tamal Krishna was very strong, very dominant, and a great leader, but he wasn't always so friendly towards the ladies. And I hadn't seen him for a long, long time. And I went to Mayapur that last year. And the first thing that I was struck by was that how many Chinese devotees he had made. It was quite a large number. And then when I saw Tamal Krishna, he was offering obeisances. Again, this was a total shock to me to see him offering obeisances to everybody. And then he invited us to come to his room for kirtan. And that was a life-changing event, kirtan. The room was full of devotees. That was my first experience with Kirtan Mela. It was really, really changed my life. But Tamal Krishna was definitely a special personality that was sent to help Srila Prabhupada in his mission. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Now I would like to request our guest Nidguna Mataji. So now I will request His Holiness Padmanabh Swami Maharaj. Yes, His Holiness Padmanabh Swami Maharaj.
अंगज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे गुरुचन्द्राय राधिकाय तथात्मने चैतन्य कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्याय तद्भक्ताय नमः नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते तमाल कृष्ण गोस्वामिनीति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणी। So we used to call Tamal Krishna Maharaj as Gurudev. So I'll be calling him like Srila Gurudev. And like, rasgulla, the sweet balls. From wherever you bite, it is sweet. So in the same way, the character of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, from wherever we start, is so sweet. And, and there are many things which are already discussed, and I'm like a lamp in front of all the great personalities who have spoken before me, they're like sun. So it's true that it was very difficult to purchase the land of Mayapur, and of course there are many God brothers of Srila Prabhupada who were favorable to Srila Prabhupada, but there were many God brothers who were not favorable. So once Prabhupada wrote a letter to one of his God brother that I want a piece of land in Mayapur. The reply came that one has to be fortunate enough to get a piece of land in Mayapur Dham. Now we can see the whole Mayapur is Srila Prabhupada's. And when the land was purchased, it was purchased by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Srila Gurudev. And he himself did all the things. And when he last came to meet with Srila Prabhupada in Calcutta temple, the whole temple was dark. Only there was one light which was on in Prabhupada's room. And when he handed over the deed to Srila Prabhupada, you know what he said? The land is yours, Srila Prabhupada. Although everything was done by Srila Gurudev. So like when Krishna came, he came with all his associates. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he came with all his associates. And when Srila Prabhupada came, he came with all his associates who took birth in different part of the country. So these are all the personalities who were favorable to Srila Prabhupada. Otherwise, who could have spread the name of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada? It was only our Abhay Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada who spread the name of his Guru Maharaj. There was no one to spread the name of his Guru Maharaj. It's very rare. So, I remember some of my dealings with Srila Gurudev. It's true that this Kirtan Mela was first started by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, by Srila Gurudev, in his room, in his last pastimes. Two things he was doing: Kirtan in his room from 7 o'clock and taking bath in the Ganga at 12 o'clock. Exactly at 12 o'clock, he used to open the door. And we were waiting outside. We used to wait outside when Gurudev will come. So we used to go with Srila Gurudev to the Ganga, and Gurudev would be in one place taking bath with his intimate God brothers, and we used to take bath in some distance. Once what happened, one devotee, we were playing in the Ganges, and one devotee, he took up some mud and threw me on my face. And I became a little upset, and I also took up the mud and I also threw towards him, and he just dipped in the Ganga and the mud went to Srila Gurudev's soldier. And Gurudev looked at his back and it was full of mud. I didn't have camera at that time. He was looking so beautiful, as in white body, black mud. Gurudev asked, who did this? I said, I did this, Srila Gurudev. He said, why? I had no answer. So he said, you should clean this. So my height is very small and Gurudev's height was very tall. So Gurudev has to come down and I was cleaning and within a short time it was clean and Gurudev just dipped me in the Ganga. Like that. And really, he was a good preacher with Vishnujan Maharaj. Vishnujan Maharaj used to play keyboard in front of the colleges. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, used to watch who was interested, who was dancing in the kirtan. And he used to pull that boy and ask him, where is his house? And request him, can I drop you to your house? Obviously he would say yes. Then within that short time, within 20 minutes or half an hour, he would preach him and take him direct to the temple, not to his house. So there are many things to speak, but there are many devotees to speak, and also offering is going on. There will be prasadam right now. So I'd like to end up right here. Hare Krishna, Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Now I would like to request Her Grace Jamuna Priya Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale, Srimati Radhanath Swami Niti Namine, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. First of all, my most humble obeisances and to all the Maharajas here and all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. I wasn't sure that I would suddenly be actually asked to speak, but somehow this morning, when I was doing japa, this thought came to my mind, what if I would get the chance to glorify Maharaj? He just came through my heart and my mind, and then one disciple asked me, would you like to speak? So I was shocked. That actually happened. So then I looked at Maharaj's picture and I said, maybe he does want me to speak. So, Prabhuji, how many minutes? 5. So this is going back to the year, I'm from Bhaktivedanta Manor in England. This is going back to the year when Maharaj actually left his body. So I was living near the manor and I was working in IT. So I used to go to work every day, and Maharaj would every now and then come to England, and he was at the Oxford University. Maharaj was, I'm not quite sure whether maybe he was doing a PhD. In England, this is very common that all the devotees who are working, they will come to the manor, attend the class, and then they will go back to their respective jobs. So I used to really lament because I couldn't manage to do that. I was working in London, so I couldn't attend the class because it would have been 9 o'clock by then. So I used to miss his class every time, and I was internally really lamenting that here Maharaj is here and I'm not getting a chance to hear from him directly, you know, like. So this desire was very intense, and I remember that I was just desiring hopefully one day. So it so happened that on Basanta Panchami on that year, Maharaj was there at the manor, and I haven't planned my thoughts, so I'm just speaking at the top of my head or heart, I suppose. And Basant Panchami being a day when there are so many wonderful personalities, appearance days, and I think Disappearance Day as well. So there was a whole lineup in the temple hall of devotees who were speaking, and I can't remember clearly who was there, but maybe it'll come back later, but Maharaj was there. So all the devotees, Maharajas spoke on different personalities, and then Maharaj began to speak. And I remember one instruction he said in that. I can't remember the whole content right now, but he did say that everything we do is meant to be an offering for Krishna. And he said not just what we cook, etc. I'm paraphrasing, but he said even our reading is a service to Krishna. So this was really new for me, and I remember writing that down and sticking it on the wall in my house. So when I heard Maharaj speak, it just went so deep down in my heart that the class finished and everybody got up, and if you know the manor, then there's Prabhupada on the right side. So everybody left, and I just found myself like a puppy dog behind Maharaj. If we would turn right, this was happening not by my control, it was just happening. So Maharaj saw that there is this one, you know, devotee, and she's like kind of following me behind me. So then Maharaj was going upstairs to the patron's office. For those who know, it's up on the landing upstairs. And I was following Maharaj, and there was one disciple of Maharaj, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, I'm just following Maharaj." And Maharaj could see that we were following him, and before I knew, the other young girls as well, the devotees, one of them was Shiva Maharaj's disciple. So then they said, "Okay, we're just going to do what you're doing." And before we know, we were a few of us Matajis were following Maharaj, and he knew that we were following him, and he let us come into the room. And then there was a whole question-answer session that each one of us had with Maharaj. And I had asked a certain question at that time, I remember. And Maharaj, he said, if you feel like this, then you should start reading CC, Chaitanya Charitamrita. But I said, "Maharaj, I haven't finished the Bhagavatam yet. I haven't started the Bhagavatam yet." But he said to me that if this is how you are feeling when you look at the deities, then you should start reading. So anyhow, that meeting was really beautiful. And then what happened was Maharaj was, Krishna Kshetra Maharaj was there. At that time, he hadn't taken sannyas yet. So they were having prasad. And I had asked a lot of questions to Maharaj in that meeting. So when they were having prasad, I really wanted to serve Maharaj in some way. So then Maharaj was looking through the door, and he could see that I was standing outside, and I asked to his servant, and there was only Maharaj and Krishna Kshetra Maharaj. They were talking. So then I said, "Can I just do some service for Maharaj? I'd like to do something." And he said, "Well, okay, why don't you go and get..." Then he said to Maharaj, asked, "What does she want?" And he said, "Maharaj, she wants to serve." So Maharaj said, "Okay, ask her to bring some drink for me." So at that time, there was this very healthy fruit drink called Ame, and it was a fizzy fruit drink. It was healthy. So then I got a few bottles of that, and I took it upstairs, and then Maharaj took that. And then Maharaj said, then I still stood outside, and then he said, "What does she want now?" And then he said, she wants to get something for you. And I can't remember what Maharaj said, but I think I went and got it. And then I was still outside, and then Maharaj himself came outside. And he said, "Yes, for all the questions you had been asking me, it serves you right. No matter what you get, it's not going to be enough." And then we both really laughed. And it was really very, very sweet. Should I end? Okay, I'll end now. There was something more, but I'll end now. Tamal Krishna Goswami Guru Maharaj ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Mataji. So now we will have Puspanjali, then we will have Sandhya, Aarti.
Flowers, distribute करो. Flower, full, सबको देना. Flower. कौन है? हाँ दिया घंटा महाराज मान को दिया